Miss Hotchkiss, I want your pantyhose.
What?
Official business. Take off your stockings.
Trust. Do you know any songs about trust, Ian?
Well, I understand that the 7th studio album from Megadeth led off with a song about trust, Gerry.
You don't look like the Megadeth type of guy to me, Ian.
Well, looks can be deceiving.
Yeah. How are you, you sea urchin?
I would say I'm fair to middling.
Middling's always good.
Yeah, better than sad or ill or...
And if
injured.
you are feeling fantastic, you know that the only way is down.
Exactly.
Middling, you've got opportunity.
Things to look forward to.
Precisely.
Like this podcast.
Like this week's episode.
Absolutely. It wasn't a bad one at all.
Enjoyed it?
Very much.
As per.
It's like we keep saying every week, they're on a good run.
Mm-hmm.
I think they understand the character a little bit at this point, more than maybe at the start they had an idea for what the character would be, but now you're starting to see what the character is, and it's a slightly different thing.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before. I mean, it's the natural evolution of a well-written character or a number of characters, and the writers. I mean, this is, again, something that you don't necessarily see perhaps in a lot of British comedies or indeed TV shows. American writers tend to vary and have numerous different writers over the course of a season.
Yeah.
British shows tend to be written by the same writer or the same writing team.
Yeah.
Because they're a shorter series, perhaps, generally 6 to 12 episodes.
Yeah, and American shows tend to be up in the 20 to 25. Not so much now with your HBO things like Game of Thrones runs to 10 episodes, but the British model used to be generally shorter.
So you could get away with someone or one team writing everything. But the American shows, I mean, if you're looking at something like, Murder, She Wrote, with over 200 episodes, nearly 300 episodes.
Yeah, there was 4 or 5 people who wrote that, wasn't there?
More than that.
6.
More.
7?
More.
4,018.
Closer, yeah.
Okay.
I think people just, came and went. Same with Sledgehammer. We've got different writers. We're seeing a number of them recurring at the moment. But it's a long-winded rant or long-winded detour to get to the point that it's impressive that you're seeing the characters develop, even although they've been written by different people and different teams. They've taken on the mantle of it and developed it. So perhaps the producers were involved heavily to guide them.
Well, I wonder whether the creator, for example, or the producer needs to have a level of comfort with the writer, or if they give them a spec, they take what they get back and edit it. Because every episode you see the same group of story editors listed in the credits. Yeah. So you wonder, do they fine-tune things to keep these things going?
I think they will, but I agree that there will be a level of comfort, and that's, borne out by the fact that he does tend to return to, or he has so far, returned to the same guys. Yeah. Anyway, we've rambled on considerably this week. Do we want to ramble on about this week's episode?
Well, why not?
Do you have a summary prepared?
As always.
Crack on.
In Mists of the Spider-Woman, Sledge and Dory face a race against time after Hammer is poisoned in a case of mistaken identity. With little to go on, and Sledge facing certain death, the pair must track down a series of villains to find Juanita, who they believe will have the antidote to the snake venom. The scene is set for a final showdown on the villain's boat, and all that remains to be seen is whether Hammer can survive, or if his time will run out.
Thanks for that slippery little summary there, Ian. We begin on a boat, which we come to learn is the bad guy's boat, isn't it?
Very much so.
And we see some snake venom being decanted into a glass by hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the official technique for extracting snake venom.
Pretty risky. Before the head villain, who we come to know as Juanita.
Yeah, she's calling the shots here. She's marching around making demands of the others.
She instructs one of her henchmen on her devious plan. He is to arrange for a woman to get a certain man to drink this poison, from which he's going to die unless he comes crawling back to her, pleading for the antidote.
Yeah, now, that brings to mind a thought, something you just said. You said she has a henchman. Why is it that bad guys have henchmen and good guys have sidekicks? What's the difference between a sidekick and a henchman?
Well, I think a henchman is. I think that's the point, isn't it? It's the difference between infamous and famous. There's a negative connotation to a henchman.
But it's a similar role.
Very similar role. I think it's just to denote the fact that they're not good guys.
How does that play off in a morally ambiguous setting?
Such as?
Well, a lot of these modern superhero movies try to be a bit more ambiguous, where it's not like the guys in colours are good guys and the guys in dark are bad guys. There's a bit more nuance to it. So would a morally ambiguous character, maybe a vigilante who strides down the edge of the law, would he have a sidekick or a henchman?
Perhaps a hench kick.
Or a sideman?
Precisely. Let's move on. We head over to the precinct, and Dory declines Sledge's date offer.
Yeah, was that a date, or was it just a friends going out thing?
When I say date, I'm using it in the loosest possible sense. I don't think there was any romantic overtones there. I think it was there. I don't think Sledge has any other friends.
Yeah, I mean, this is the closest the two of them come to flirting so far, I think. He asks her specifically to come to this gun show with him, and she counters with a sort of, oh, you wouldn't want to go to an opera. You know, the kind of hoping he might say, actually, that sounds quite good.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I agree with it. I don't think it's flirting in the romantic sense. I think it's just friendship flirting, because before, Sledge pretends to be, uncaring, doesn't need anyone else. And so I think it's just the fact that they're dancing around the fact that they're now actually friends and can hang out together.
I think that's it. I think they're realising that they actually like each other's company.
Yes.
And they want to spend time together away from work, but they can't quite express that.
Well, Sledge certainly can't.
Yeah, absolutely not.
What's Dory's excuse?
For not going to the gun show. She's got 2 tickets to the opera. Why she got 2 tickets for a start? I want to know that.
Well, you don't give someone one ticket to an event, do you?
Well, someone giving it to her? Did she buy a ticket?
Yeah, perhaps someone, a friend can't make it, so they says, here, Dory, we can't make it, here are a couple of tickets.
My assumption is that Sledge bought 2 tickets hoping that Dory would go with him to the gun show.
Sorry, are you talking about...
Well, I'm talking about Dory, but I'm now going back to Sledge. Because I'm guessing he got himself the tickets to the gun show.
Yeah.
So...
I think he wanted her to go with him.
Yeah, and the other one, her opera tickets, did she buy them, hoping someone would go with her, or did she get given them? It's not really made clear. I think we should demand answers.
We'll try and get to the bottom of it. But anyway.
I did like the line, or the exchange between them here. She is kind of being coy, and she's saying to him, I'm sure you wouldn't be interested in anything that's not in English. And his response, I think this is an early favourite for my best line of this episode. He says it's not true because he loves Stallone movies.
Now, you remember, at this point in 86, Stallone is massive. Possibly the largest. Yeah, in fact, the biggest movie star on the planet. Arnie hasn't peaked yet. Bruce Willis hasn't had Die Hard yet.
Yeah. We've had, 4 Rocky movies by this point?
4 Rocky, yeah. He's without a doubt the
Rambo.
biggest action star. Yeah, Rambo. So
Jean-Claude Van Damme's got to be competing with him.
No.
At that stage. Is he too early for him?
Far too early. Van Damme didn't really make it big until Bloodsport, which is about 88.
Right.
A couple of minor roles, and I think one of his first was No Retreat, No Surrender. Very minimal role, and he was also in Breaking 2, a dancing movie. But yeah, no, his breakout role was Bloodsport a couple of years later.
When was Universal Soldier?
It was certainly well after this.
It was still the early days for Dolph Lundgren as well.
Well, Dolph had only just...
When was Rocky his breakout?
85.
Rocky 4?
Yes, that was the year before. But I mean, he was a sidekick to Stallone.
Yeah, so he hadn't taken it on from there at that point.
No, I mean, I think he had a few movies out, but he was no... I mean, he never did reach the heights of Stallone. Stallone always...
I'm sorry, have you seen the Masters of the Universe movie?
I have, actually.
Epically fantastic cinematic experience.
It was fun, but it was garbage.
Yes.
Absolute.
Like all the best movies.
Yeah, no, well, listen, you don't have to tell me that. Yeah, Courtney Cox was in that, yeah.
And I think the guy who went on to be Tom Paris in Star Trek Voyager, Robert Duncan McNeil, played her friend or boyfriend.
Right, okay. And James Tolkien, who played Strickland in Back to the Future.
There you go.
The key, it's some sort of music key, didn't they?
Yeah. And Frank Langella, obviously, as Skeletor.
Yeah. Anyhow, we really are rambling this week, aren't we?
A little bit sidetracked there. I'm still on the first page of my notes.
We see Trunk in his office. He's on the phone to the commissioner, and he's delighted. This is brilliant.
Yeah, I love it.
They finally caught I think it's the West Side Strangler after 8 years and numerous killings. And he explains that they've got fingerprints on a partially eaten donut, which we see sitting on Trunk's desk.
It's not just a full set of fingerprints. He must have used all 5 fingers to hold his donut.
What happens?
Sledge comes and eats the donut.
Yeah, Trunk turns his back for a few moments to complete his call. Sledge sees the donut and he loves it. He stuffs it right in his face.
Yeah.
And he's got all the icing over his lips, etc. A couple of things we should say on this. One, at this point they've got the prints from it. You don't need the actual donut. So he's confirming they've got prints. So that's it, done and dusted.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that's fine. But secondly as well, this also contradicts Sledge, if you remember, in Hammer Gets Nailed. When he was out with the reporter in the back who was following him.
Yep.
He said it was a myth. Cops don't eat donuts because it makes you go liberal, if you remember. He eats granola.
Yeah, he did say that. And
Yeah.
he's
Eating donuts.
eating donuts.
And later in the episode as well, he eats donuts.
He's still half of a donut, yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is something that demands further explanation. I think we need to speak to the continuity team.
I think we do, yeah. Give them a bit of a...
But I think it's a difference between going out and getting donuts and opportunistically taking a bit of donut that you come across. That's not the same. You can indulge when it's, a stolen treat is much better than one that you've had to buy for yourself.
Correct. I just loved his face when he sort of hears the end of the conversation and he realises what he's done and he's like, oh no, he tries to hide a bit and realises. Brilliant. So we head over to Sledge's apartment. There's an accompanying sax score, quite noirish, I thought. I enjoyed actually the score in this week's episode. And we find what I class as a very hot 80s blonde. She's got the massive blonde hair.
Yeah, it was quite in fashion at the time, kind of in vogue, I think, from what I can recall and what I've seen in old photographs. But he's kind of suspicious of her.
Well, she's waiting with this story about having car trouble in his apartment.
Yeah, which he doesn't believe for a second.
No, not at all. But he is quite... We've said before, he's not the most gallant of people, but he offers her something to drink, grab a donut, and allows her to use the telephone to call for help.
Albeit he wants the 20 cents that the call costs.
Yeah.
And he makes sure it's a local call.
We see him pull out something he's bought at the gun show. It's a gun in a
bottle,
yeah.
Yes. He's drinking milk straight from the carton, as all men who live alone do.
Yep, and eating another donut, as we discussed earlier.
Well, this is where we're really blowing up the thing, isn't it?
Yep. What happens?
Well, he steps away for a moment and she poisons the milk.
She does, with the snake venom.
Yes. At this point, we assume that Sledge is the intended target.
He immediately starts to convulse and collapses to the ground.
Yeah, he drinks literally a mouthful more of the milk and he collapses down and he grabs her by the arm and he sees that she has a turtle tattooed on the back of her hand.
Yeah, not the daintiest of tattoos, is it?
No, it looks like it's been drawn by a small child.
It looks like it's one of those ones you used to buy as a kid that you could transfer.
It probably was a transfer, to be fair.
Yeah, she's not a method actor, I wouldn't have thought.
Well, certainly not in that respect, I wouldn't guess.
Back to the precinct.
Hammer's a little the worse for wear, having had this poison.
I thought he looked great, looking dishevelled.
Yes, it was stylish.
Yeah, so he arrives, he's looking deathly, not just dishevelled, he's at death's door.
Yeah, and we see concern from Trunk.
Yes, and the rest of them, yeah, we do. We're definitely seeing his attitude mellow towards Sledge these days.
Absolutely. And Sledge tells Trunk that he thinks he's come down with something.
And Trunk asks, what?
He says poison.
Before collapsing on the ground. A little later, in Trunk's office.
We get a bit of the diagnosis from the doctor.
Yeah, well, there's a doctor there. He's bringing Trunk and Dory and Sledge up to speed. I think at first he says, there's no euphemistic way of saying this, you're going to die.
I like the fact that trashing the office, he stops to salute the flag.
Yeah, it's just a little tiny thing, but it was brilliant. And it was a sort of a half, if you look, you really can't be bothered, but he gives it a little salute anyway.
Yeah, he's definitely going to trash that.
And then he sits back down and casually asks if he's sure.
Yes.
The doctor provides some further information.
You have somehow ingested the venom from some exotic species of cobra. It's usually fatal within 5 days.
Isn't there an antidote?
Yes, actually, there's a group of Trappist monks who maintain a monastery in the apex of the Andes Mountains who've developed a serum that's used as the antidote.
Well, call them.
Unfortunately, they've taken a vow of silence.
You got 5 days. Isn't that enough time, Doc?
Sure, but you've been unconscious for the last 4.5 days.
So I got 12 hours left.
No, 11 hours. Last night, daylight savings time started.
All right, 11, Doctor.
But you've been sleeping on the couch for the last 2.5 hours. So that means you have 8.5 hours left.
No, you have 8.5 hours left. You find that antidote.
Doctor, I hope you don't take this personally. Don't you think we should get a second opinion?
Mine is the 9th. 8 of us are in agreement.
Then let's talk to the other guy.
Okay, but he thinks you should be dead already.
At this point, Hammer's not taking it. He tells the doctor that he doesn't know him and he won't take this kind of thing lying down.
Before lying down.
He collapses onto the sofa again.
Yeah. I like that clip, just the reduction of time. I thought it was a bit of comedy genius.
I loved the daylight savings line. I didn't quite understand why the 2.5 hours on the couch weren't included in the time he's been unconscious.
I'll give them that. So we're still at the precinct. It's later on. And Mayjoy, we've met him before on several occasions, and he acts fairly unpleasantly here, doesn't he?
Well, he does, but I think we have seen before that the rest of the force aren't necessarily huge fans of Hammer.
Yeah.
We know now that Trunk and Dory like him. They've spent a lot of time with him, but the others, they started off with a negative opinion, and why would that have changed?
Sure. So Mayjoy and another cop discuss Sledge's condition before Mayjoy tells Sledge that he'll get the $50 he owes him on Monday.
Yeah. He also didn't feel bad enough not to borrow money from him either.
Yeah.
But Hammer isn't really in the mood for jokes.
He and Dory are trying to come up with a suspect. So they're going through everyone who threatened him or had a grudge against him, and Dory rightly points out this is a futile attempt.
Yeah, she says they'll be there all night and she'll be dead in the morning.
Yeah.
That's a little bit insensitive.
She puts her foot in it a few times, doesn't she?
A couple of times, yeah. But just as they're about to give up all hope...
Yeah. Very, very fortunately, they notice a female cop just behind them who has the same turtle tattoo on her hand, and she explains that she's part of a sports team.
Yeah, I mean, Dory's a bit surprised because I don't think she believed this turtle existed, but Sledge made it clear to her that he has hallucinated many times about many types of creature and never a turtle, so it must have been real.
Tell me about this sports team.
Yeah, they're at Rogers Bar and Grill. I think it's a wrestling team, a tag team event.
Yep. The amount of American shows and movies that I've watched where this is a thing,
yeah,
it must be. You know,
I guess. I've
mud
never
wrestling, females in a bar.
Never come across it in my life. Maybe a certain type of bar.
The cop in the precinct had explained that she had a wrestling partner called Cindy.
Yeah.
And it fitted the description of who poisoned Hammer. So that's why they're in Rogers Bar and Grill. So they head over to speak to Cindy, and they find her in the middle of a wrestling match. So both he and Dory have to get into the ring to grab her, where they find out that the poison was meant for his neighbour who lived at number 12.
Yeah, Alejandro.
Yeah, not number 13, where Sledge lived. And this was a nod back, I think, to was it last week, To Live and Die on TV.
Right, yes.
Where Sledge went to the wrong door. And
used to see the widow.
Yes.
I thought they were quite restrained with the mud wrestling depiction. They could have taken it, like, there's been scenes, I'm thinking particularly, I think 3 weeks ago in the hospital with Dory and Sledge trying to get Sledge off the trolley, and they're falling around and all this nonsense.
I think they didn't want to be perhaps too gratuitous.
Yeah, they leave plenty to the imagination anyway. They don't go too far with this scene, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Sledge's response to the fact it's the wrong person's.
I think it's my favourite line of the episode. What does he say?
He says, "Now when I die, my neighbour's life will flash before my eyes."
Brilliant.
I'm not sure he's quite grasped that concept.
No, but I like he's thinking. They're out on the street.
Will you slow down?
Look, I gotta get to my apartment. What do they have against my neighbor? What do they want from my neighbor? Why do they try to kill my neighbor? Who is my neighbor?
Hammer, you gotta stop this. This is killing you. Oh, I did it again. Just come back to my place. I'll cook you a fantastic meal.
Don't you mean Last Supper?
Look, Hammer, I'm sorry. Let's just spend some time together. Just enjoying each other.
No, Jerome. I'm on duty. I'm always on duty. I'm a cop. A cop with a perfect record. I'm gonna find out who poisoned me. And I got about 5 hours to do it in.
4. I'm sorry, your watch is broken.
Oh, typical. That lifetime guarantee, too.
I think Dory's obviously in a bit of shock at this stage. Because she's not acting the way that we're used to seeing her act.
And also, we see again the intimacy, the friendship.
Yeah, I think she is very upset and doesn't know what to do. She doesn't think they're going to solve this case. She thinks her friend's going to die.
I'm sure he does as well, but he can't accept that and just sit down and take it. He wants to keep active and try and do what he can.
Yeah. I think he's quite happy to spend time with her as long as the time is spent solving this case and saving his life.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see though if there's any follow-up to this in the following episodes.
In what sense?
The sense of this development in their
Oh, right,
relationship.
sure. Sledge reaches the conclusion that women and kings are the type of people who kill by poison.
He wants to know what king would want to kill my neighbour.
We briefly go back to the boat, and Gomez, he's the henchman, he's nervous as he apologises to Juanita for the mistaken identification. And she's angered as he tells her that he's done something to her estranged lover, but has not got a statue for her that she cannot live without.
Yeah, it's all a bit vague.
So we head over to the neighbour's apartment. Dory and Sledge creep up, and he is further annoyed to find his mail in the neighbour's letterbox. He's dismayed because the neighbour gets his mail while Sledge gets his poison. Not a fair deal.
That's not a good swap, is it?
No. Inside, the room has been ransacked.
There's bullet holes in the wall, but Sledge knows where they came from.
Yeah, he admits that it was caused by himself.
That's a bit careless, is it not?
Well, we've seen that a few times.
Yeah, he's got a target in his room.
Yeah, so it's consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. I like they find Alejandro and he's been shot, and Hammer's response is, well, I didn't do it.
I think at this point he's still breathing, isn't he?
Yes.
And the landlady, she appears on the scene.
Yes, she's got information. She wants to find Sledge, and she's glad he's there.
She tells him that her apartment was broken into and the pass key for all apartments was stolen by a man wearing a silk stocking. And she agrees to go down to the station and look at mugshots.
Yes.
Dory tells him that she will remain there in the apartment to continue with the work, and Sledge thanks her.
Yeah, and she's touched.
Very touched. She's delighted. In fact, there's almost a tear in her eye.
Yeah, it's the last time you'll ever thank her, and also the first.
Yeah, and he genuinely has thanked her. I think that means a lot to her. So we're down at the precinct.
Hammer and his landlady arrive, and he gives her the mugshots to take a look.
At the same time, the doc informs Trunk that there has been no progress, and Trunk as well seems genuinely upset by this.
Yes. Meanwhile, back at the apartment.
Well, it's outside the apartment.
Yeah, there's a package delivery taking place for Alejandro.
Yeah. We see the deceased being placed into an ambulance as this parcel arrives. And Dory, she takes it, says it could be evidence, and we see Gomez looking on, skulking on from a car across the street.
Yeah, he obviously was hoping to intercept the package. How he knew it was coming, or if he knew it was coming, I don't know.
Back to the precinct.
Yep, Hammer's a bit upset and Trunk's concerned.
Yeah, he's not taking it well. Trunk tries to comfort him. I enjoyed this. Sledge bemoans the fact that he always thought he would live to see a nuclear bomb go off. That's the way.
And Trunk points out that there's still time.
45 minutes or something, so there's still plenty of time.
Yeah, this is obviously height of the Cold War, isn't it?
Of course.
That would be a realistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Trunk also says that they'll pull through together, and Hammer rightly notes that he will, because he's got the easy part.
The landlady is there. She's not having much luck until Sledge demands that she takes off her stockings, as we heard at the top of the podcast. And she's got to trust him.
She seems a bit excited at the request.
Yes.
I think she's got a wee flame for Sledge there.
I think she certainly does. But why does Sledge want her to remove her stockings?
Well, she's going to put it over the photos to see if it helps her identify anybody.
Not sure how useful that would be.
No, but Dory arrives with the statue.
Correct. But Sledge is not convinced it's relevant, as apparently they cost $1.99 and he gives them away at Christmas.
Yeah, but Alejandro had mailed it to himself and insured it for a high value.
Yep. Step back there. Who does Sledge give these presents to?
Presumably his colleagues.
So, but you said earlier that
they don't like him.
They don't like him. Does he have other friends?
Maybe gun club, or maybe he gives it to his victims.
Yeah, the bad guys who deserved what they got.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially, but there we go.
Maybe he gets it for his gun.
Could do. Maybe he's got an extended family, nieces and nephews we don't know about.
Could do.
In any case, he smashes this statue, and what do they discover?
$1 million jewel.
Just then, the landlady identifies Gomez.
Ernesto Gomez.
And very fortunately, as they're about to leave, they spot Gomez in the precinct.
That must have been a surprise.
He spills the beans.
Hey, what the...
So we finally meet, Gomez. You got 15 seconds to tell me everything you know.
Hey, you give me the jewel and I tell you anything.
I'll give you this.
Hammer. Okay. It was not my idea. It was my boss, Juanita. Her lover, Alejandro, he stole the Feldheimer stone. He sealed it in a statue. To get the jewel back, she tried to poison him. And she got the wrong man. But I don't have to tell you that.
You put a woman in charge of things and see what happens.
Exactly.
How do we find this Juanita?
We sailed it on a cheap tramp steamer, SS Mina. She's in the stern.
All right, book him now.
So, they're going to go and find Juanita.
Yes, down to the dock, down to the boat. And Dory uses her womanly charms to distract one of the guards. And at the same time, Sledge enters Juanita's room.
Sledge has got 5 minutes left to live. It doesn't appear to have lost any sort of strength or stamina.
That's not how it works. You're 100%, then
you die.
0%. Yes. He's in this room in a less than covert way.
Well, there's a bead curtain and he pulls half of it down and slips over the bits on the floor and negotiates an exchange with Juanita, the antidote for the jewel.
Yes, but he shoots his bolt too early.
Well, they double cross one another.
Yeah.
And he's given her a rock wrapped in tissue paper. And she's given him additional poison.
Poison. That was brilliant. It's like... we then have the customary fight scene.
Yeah, he says if he's going, he's taking her with him.
Yep, and during this, Sledge has to punch a snake, knock it out, just before Trunk arrives with the captured Juanita and the antidote.
That's it. The monks have come through.
Yep. Sledge asks him, just before he takes the antidote, he asks Trunk how he can ever thank him. What does Trunk say?
He says, don't drink it.
And he pauses for a second and realises that Trunk's only
half kidding.
And we quickly go back to the precinct for this week's epilogue.
Yes, it's a kind of a reprise of a funny scene from earlier in the episode.
Yep. They have again managed to capture the greedy West Side Strangler.
And another donut has been found with the fingerprints.
Yep. You think Trunk would have learned his lesson this time?
Well, his procedure in terms of caring for the evidence is weak.
It's lacking, isn't it? Leaving donuts lying in desks and walking out.
If that was critical evidence against a major criminal, you wouldn't be leaving it lying around your desk.
Because what happens?
Well, not only could Sledge come in as he does, but animals, bugs, anything could happen.
Mm-hmm. Cleaner might come in.
Yep.
Sledge comes in, yeah, and gobbles it up for a second time.
And you get Trunk looking a bit dismayed, but not furious as he has been in the past.
Yeah.
I think he suspects it's his own fault.
Yeah, learned his lesson.
That's the end.
Enjoyed it?
That was a good episode. Mm-hmm. It's like we said, it's keeping up the level.
Anything you want to say before we head over to discuss some production information?
No, not really. I mean, I think we've covered the critical aspects.
We have. So this was first broadcast on the 20th of December 1986, directed by Chuck Braverman and written by Al John and Mike Reese, who we've discussed all of them before.
Yeah, I think Braverman's in the middle of a run of doing a lot of Sledge episodes to this stage.
Eileen Barnett played Juanita. She has been in Days of Her Life, Matlock, Santa Barbara, Murder, She Wrote, Knots Landing, The A-Team, Quincy, and Happy Days. She is married to actor Bruce French, who has been in lots of Star Trek stuff.
Right.
When I say lots, I think he's been in 1 or 2 episodes of all the major branches of Star Trek, I'm led to believe. Shelley Desai played Gomez. A fairly familiar face.
Yeah, he looked familiar.
Born in India in 1935, he has been in Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Maniac Cop 2, Murder 1, and Star Trek Next Generation, amongst others. Alan Blumenfeld played the Doctor. He was born in 1952. This is his first of 2 Sledgehammer episodes. He has been in CSI, Heroes, Gilmore Girls, Murder 1, Brooklyn Bridge, Family Ties, and Friday the 13th Part 6.
So one of the 6 best, would you say?
That's a very strong entry into the canon.
Fair enough.
Brenda Strong played the landlady. She was born in 1960. She has been in Fear of the Walking Dead, Blood Relatives, Dallas, Desperate Housewives, Seventh Heaven, Seinfeld, Party of Five, Twin Peaks, and Star Trek Next Generation. Again, amongst lots of other things. And Larry Wilmore, now he had a very small role. He played the mailman who gave Dory the parcel outside the apartment.
Right. Huh.
The reason I mentioned him is that, well, he was born in 1961, but he was the creator and writer of the Bernie Mac show and also the PJs. He wrote the nightly show with Larry Wilmore. He wrote episodes of The Office, Sister Sister, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and many episodes of In Living Colour. And he won a Primetime Emmy for the Bernie Mac show. So I believe he's not a huge star or name over here, although we've heard of many of the shows, but I think he's quite a big name in the States.
Right. In the industry, anyway.
Yeah, certainly. The Miss of the Spider-Woman was obviously a play on the 1976 novel by Manuel Puig, The Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Puig. It was adapted into a stage play in 1983 and then a movie in 1985, in which William Hurt won the Best Actor, and the film was nominated for Best Movie, Director and Adapted Screenplay, so obviously a very highly regarded movie.
Immediately before this was getting written.
Yes. Favourite lines this week, Ian?
The one about the Stallone movie.
Okay, mine's is about the neighbour's life flashing before his eyes.
Oh, or maybe the daylight savings time.
Yeah.
And between those two. They're
Okay.
both good.
Next week, we have The Old Man and the Sledge.
The Old Man in the Sea.
I was thinking more about Citizen Kane.
Oh, right, okay. Rosebud.
Yeah. Anything you want to say?
No, well, just the usual. Social media, people can find us there on Twitter and on Facebook. We're at Sledgecast. It helps the show a lot if you could rate and review the show on iTunes, even if it's not where you listen to us, because that helps others find the show. It bumps us up in the lists and so on. That would be really very much appreciated. And join in the chat on sledgehammerpodcast.com, where we have a bit of a conversation about each episode on a week-to-week basis.
That's us. Cheerio.
Bye for now.